All right, everybody, I want to welcome you to another episode of Fresh Takes, where I talk to speakers and people just know how to speak very well. I interview them and ask them about their fresh take on the art and the business of speaking. So today I've got a powerful speaker who I met for the very first time in an airport. We knew each other through social media and Facebook, and he told me he was coming through town, and we were actually bouncing around through an airport. So he made 5 minutes to come over, say hello, and introduce himself, and we've been friends ever since. So ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together if you're watching this for Mr. Author Speaker Odell Bizzell II.
What's going on, everybody? How you doing, Frank? Thanks for having me on Fresh Takes.
Yeah, not a problem. So, Odell, once they, see this online, they come to the Facebook group, I'm going to have like your bio up, but, we know that, people will read these fancy bios for us when we come across the stage that, you are, an author, you're a coach, and, you consult, and you're a keynote speaker, and you've spoken in front of thousands of people, all around the world, and like, this is your business. But everybody wants to know, who are you really? Like, so who is Odell Bizzell II? And then, what do you speak on, and how did you get into the speaking game?
Oh yeah. Well, who am I? I am the son of William and Doris, the grandson of Christine, Sierra's husband, Michaela, Will and Rain's dad. I'm a friend. I am probably one of the most hilarious people that you'd ever meet off of a stage, not like on a stage. And I'm just one of those people, Frank, that handles life through well-written and well-spoken words. So in a nutshell, that's me. I got into speaking not accidentally. It was something that I always wanted to do. I just went the wrong way about it. I was heavy into MLM network marketing when I was in college, and I was really bad at it. But I went to all the conferences, right? I went to all the conferences, and I would hear these speakers, and I would buy the courses and buy the CDs and all that stuff. And then I heard Jim Rohn for the first time, and I was like, man, this is so cool. I can't wait till I get rich so that I can start going around the country and speaking. Like that was my thought process as a 18, 19-year-old. Then I graduated from college in North Carolina State. And I graduated 2007. So right before like the Great Recession. I had no idea what I was going to do. I did college badly. And what I mean by that is I had very average grades, and I did not get involved. So when I graduated, my public speaking professor, Dr. Pond, he said, "Hey, what are you going to do?" And I said, "I don't know." And he said, "You should consider being a professional speaker. You were one of my best students in the 25 years that I've been teaching." And I was like, "Professor, don't you have to be rich and famous to do that?" And he said, "No, you need a message, and you need an audience, and you need somebody to pay you. That's all." And so when he said that, it kind of sparked something in me. I was like, okay, wow. I didn't even really realize it. And then I just went down that rabbit hole, man. You know how that is. You go down that rabbit hole and you're like, professional speaking.
So you took the blue pill. You took the blue pill.
Yeah, I took it. And from that point on, I was kind of hooked and driven. I was like, I'm going to be this speaker. I'm going to be this author. And so I speak on different things. And I don't know if we're going to get into that as we talk. A lot of times when you're coached, when you're taught, you got to find your lane, right?
Yeah.
I didn't do that. I talked about everything, and I still do. So that's something interesting. I talk about, leadership, talk about diversity, I talk about financial literacy, I talk about student success, I talk about a lot of different things. And so, that's kind of where we are today.
Yeah, I like that you said that, because everybody's watching, listening to this, as you said, that's the thing we all come into. Like you said, you got to be rich, you got to be famous. But there are people like you and me where, as you said, we have a message that we can share, and people, quote, will compensate it for you. And, you don't actually, quote, have to do good. You just said, hey, Frank, as an average student, but you're being requested by colleges and universities all around the country to come in and speak on college success. So, I mean, talk about that crazy piece there.
Yeah. So I was I was an underachiever, man. I want to say this as humbly as I know how. School is easy. School was easy for me. It was always easy for me going to high school. Through grade school, I was the kid. Hey, read this. Okay, teacher, I'll read it. No problem. It was easy for me because of my upbringing. My family, my grandparents went to college. Everybody went to, like, it wasn't, a big thing. So navigating through the educational process was not hard. Then once I got to college, it was like, I don't really need college to be successful. So why am I going to put my energy and effort into it? Which I think is the wrong, that's the wrong attitude, but that's the attitude that I had.
Right.
And so I just kind of, how many classes can I miss? Okay. And still pass. I'll miss that. What I need to do to study to make sure I get at least a B or something on that's how I lived my college academic experience. And so when I go and speak about success for college students, I let them know that had I just put 10% more effort into the educational process, it's not about what you're learning, it's about the process of learning and becoming disciplined and getting better. My life would be further ahead. So I kind of use that story a little bit to let them know, like, hey, even if you think that you're smart, even if you think, you're educated, or you're, you don't need to study, it's about practicing the study for life. It's not about getting a degree.
Right. And that's the big piece thing everybody who's listening to you right now can learn is, people want to see the successes that you have on stage. But the funny piece is, I know for me personally, is like many of my failures are, what I end up sharing with people on stage, whether it be talking to these entrepreneurs, talking to students, is it goes like, okay, here's all the things I did wrong. Here's what I did. I'm not saying it's right, but don't do it if you want to be successful in whatever area. And then, the big piece I love too, is you talked about it. You go, hey, I know a lot of people are saying you can't be the jack of all trades, but as you said, there's several things that you have a passion for that are different subjects. As you said, we got finance, college success, diversity, and you are taking care of you and your family full time by doing this. So for the people who are out there who fear that, quote, they have too many interests, what can you share with them about, having these multiple passions and being able to speak on it?
Yeah. So the thing with that, picking that lane, I think it's about picking your most valuable audience at the start. Like, who are you somebody to? Who is that audience that from gate they'll be like, okay, that's somebody that I should listen to. And I started in the college space because I graduated. I got a job in one of the worst recessions in, that we in recent memory that we can remember, especially for people like me that are early 30s. Like, that was like the introduction to life. Boom, no jobs. So
Mm-hmm.
I got a job. I got married. I did some stuff, wrote a book. I did some stuff that people my age weren't doing. So to the college student, I was somebody. Now, if I had started with associations and companies then, it wouldn't have worked because I was a kid. I was 22, 23 years old. But to an 18-year-old, I was somebody. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So I start with that audience, find out what that audience is looking for, what those individuals that kind of supervise, that oversee that audience, what do they think is valuable to that audience? So then we go to financial literacy. Then we go to, student success, life skills. It's like you can talk about a lot of different stuff, but just make sure you have a overall message about that. And for me, the overall message was impact. How
Mm-hmm.
can I leave this place better than I found it? So overall, boom, no
Mm-hmm.
matter what. And then how do I walk that out for my most valuable audience? I then go in and say, well, hey, if you are a group of students, new students, right, for orientation or whatever, here are some things you need to learn to leave your campus better than you found it. If you leave your campus better than you found it, and your life will be better, here's how. So you automatically have expertise within you, to an audience. You just have to figure out who that audience is. Then you have to delineate, okay, this is what I can talk to them about, or this is what they're paying people to talk about, and then I can fit in there.
Yeah. And, you're bringing up some great points here. So, obviously you and I know each other, so we're going to be all over the place during this interview, but you brought up the fact of, financial literacy. Then you're just talking about how to go find the audience. So you're actually, people don't know this, you actually coach professional speakers now. So it's kind of funny. You said you start this career almost 12 years ago, and now you've got people reaching out to you. So for everybody listening to this one right now, let's go ahead and just start from the basics. Let's go to the point of, this is a business. There are some financial considerations. So for the people who are listening to this who want to become a professional speaker, and because you speak on finances, break that down a little bit. Like, what are some of the financial considerations a prospective professional speaker should consider before they get into this industry? Because you talked about the audience, but that's one thing. The financial side's a completely different beast.
Yeah. So the financial piece of being a professional speaker, whenever I coach people, Frank, I first of all do a good job, and I know you do this, separating the art and the business. And I remember one of my speaking coaches, you might know him, Jonathan Sprinkles.
Mm-hmm.
He said that in professional speaking, the professional speaking business, the professional is the biggest word. You know what I mean? Professional. So how do you get paid? How do you get paid? How do you lay that out? And so I tell the speakers I coach, first and foremost, you have to learn how to sell. And it's different and it's nuanced because you are literally selling yourself. Like other products, other services you might represent, you're literally selling yourself. And so the financial side of that, you've got to put your best foot forward. Your website, those online assets that you have to have. And I'm a proponent for coaching, but if you come to me or you come to Frank and you don't have a website, you don't have a video, you don't have any written word of you online, you need to get something like that. You need to get something like that, again, because it's proving to other people that you're valuable. So you need to have that, but don't spend a whole bunch on that. And so with the speaking business, you can spend a whole lot. I went down that rabbit hole too, Frank, where I was spending $1,500 for a website, because when we started many years ago, over a decade ago, all of this WordPress stuff wasn't like this. So you almost had to get somebody to build for you. And so I was spending $1,500. Oh, I don't like that site. Well, you got to pay for this. So be very, very strategic about what you do as you're looking for the financial piece. It's not a whole lot to start being a speaker. Mm-hmm. The investment comes in as you maintain and sustain your business. But to get started, you need some headshots, and you need to pay somebody to get those headshots. Even if you're a photographer, you feel like it, pay somebody, get some good lighting, get some stuff like that. You can barter services, but try to start for as little as possible while still maintaining good quality. And then as you grow your profits, then you can reinvest into your business. Then you can even reinvest in a coach, but don't spend too much starting off. We just need to see you, and you need to understand sales, and you need to understand how to properly position yourself to articulate the value that you have to give to an audience.
Yep. And let's get real too, because I know you and I've shared similar stories, but it's nice when you get that first paid job. You said you've got the website up now, and you got your message, and you go out there, and then all of a sudden someone gives you a check. So you got this check, you're happy, you're an official speaker, and you go and deposit it. And I don't know about you, but like for me, it was like I used to deposit it in my own personal account. And then a few months later, Mr. IRS came, and I got in all sorts of trouble there. So for you, maybe you can break this down for people. You kept saying, invest in your business. You didn't say, quote, invest in yourself. The business is your baby. So I'm not sure how yours is set up, but can you explain to people the fact of how you set up a business? Because I didn't do that at first. And, I paid for that one for a little while.
Right. Absolutely. So you just have to do your best to, and you said it, like your business is your baby. Business is a person. It's an entity. And so you have to plan for that. And so it's very simple. You can set up an LLC. I'm not a tax attorney. I'm not, anything like that. So you want to make sure you definitely get that formal and professional advice. But if you want to make this a thing, because I think that's and another thing when I'm coaching people, some people really like to do what we do, but they don't want to make it a thing. They don't want to make it a career. Some people like to date this stuff, then other people like me and you, we want to marry it. We want to make a family. We want to create other people like us, So if you don't want to do this thing, you don't need to worry about all of this. But getting started out, you can get an LLC. You can easily file that. It doesn't cost a lot of money. Where I'm from in North Carolina, I think it might cost $150 to file. Like, it's not a lot. Then you take the paper that you get from your Secretary of State, and then you can open up a business checking account. Very, very simple. And then you just deposit all your stuff in there. And business checking accounts are a lot like regular checking accounts. It's the same thing. Like, I have my business account with Wells Fargo. I forget how much it is, or even if it is a fee. Like, if you have a certain amount of money in there, or if you do a certain number of transactions, I think they waive the fee. But check with different credit unions, different things. But you can get that and see what that does, Frank. Is it puts in your mind, oh, this is serious. Because if you're just depositing it in your checking account and the money's getting mixed up with your full time, like it gets murky. Then the IRS comes. Oh, they come. Yes, they come. They will come after you, acting like you're rich and wanting to tax you. So you want to make sure that you do that. Also, look into an accountant. Now, this is something else that I messed up on. I will confess I messed up on it because I thought I was smart, Frank. I said, man, I can do my own taxes. I can do my own QuickBooks. I'm good. I don't need an accountant. Until that IRS said, hey, what about this from 3 years ago? And I was like, huh? What? Accountant is that simple, that problem. So if you're listening or watching, you probably are smart enough to do your own taxes. You're probably smart enough to fix your own car too. But why do it? Like, just outsource it. And also that goes back to taking your business seriously. I believe that the spoken word is the best way to transform a life. Spoken word, face to face, we talking. When you hear something from somebody else, you feel their spirit, you feel their energy. There's no other way to change that. If you want to do that for a living, you got to take it serious, because you never know the life that you might change. You never know the business you might shift that might change other people's lives. You never know. So take it seriously from the jump. So you won't have a war story about the IRS saying, hey, you owe $8,000. It's like, how? Because it will happen.
Exactly. And I love how you said war story, because, when you get speakers together like us, that's one of the first things you do. We start sharing the war stories, and then you start to realize we've all gone through it. So I'll share one of my war stories, and we'll see if you've got one similar. You can share one of yours. But I know when I first got into this, I was happy to be invited to come speak somewhere. But then I realized I got to get there. And then I realized, okay, let me see what I can put together to get there. But then when I get there, I realized, I got to stay somewhere. So I have one where I told people I had to sleep in the Kansas City airport. So I got a couple hundred college students the one day, they think I'm a rock star, but I got $5 in my pocket, and I'm going to buy the 5 for $5 at Arby's and taking that back to the airport where I can fill my water bottle up with water. Cause that's the deal. And I'm laying in the airport and I'm going, was I just really on stage claiming to be this great success? But now here I am trying to find earplugs because this is the loudest airport in the world. It's the coldest airport. And I'm waiting for my flight the next morning because I don't have a hotel. I mean, that's one of my I'm like, we all got war stories, but like, I want people to see, be transparent and see the truth with this, because they see us up on stage, but they don't know how it was like when we first started, because we've all got those war stories. So like, what's a war story you can share right now that people can learn from? So, they can learn from our mistakes, because they're going to make their own mistakes, but what can they learn from us so they don't repeat our mistakes?
Yeah, definitely. I'll give you a couple first. So I started speaking, working a job, the job that I worked as a correctional officer. I never made enough money on that job. Like, it was always a balance between what important bills am I going to pay this month type thing. So when I started speaking, that speaking income helped with that.
Mhm.
And when sometimes, similar story to you, I remember when I first left my job, it was like, all right, well, I got these speeches coming up, but I didn't have any money at the time. And so I said, man, I really need some money. So I just sent out this email blast, basically $900, like $900. Anybody that'll pay me $900 to speak. And so the school in Illinois did. And I was in between bank accounts.
Oh, no.
I was in between bank accounts. You know what I was talking about, where it's like one bank, you know what, I don't want them drafting anymore. And this is my first year of full-time speaking. So when I left my job and I had the 6 months of money saved up, and then 6 months comes fast.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man. And the thing is, I still had speeches coming up. Like, it wasn't like I didn't have anything coming up, but it's just that gap in between when the money ran out, when the speeches were coming. So my wife and I and our oldest daughter, we drove all the way to Illinois, 12-hour drive, only had enough money for one hotel night. So drove, slept in the hotel that night, and then we had to check out. I had to speak that evening, and then we drove back in my car. Like, we didn't rent a car, in my car, drove back. So that's one. The other war story is later that year. Those speeches that I had coming up, they took a little while to come in, like after the speech. They took about 36 days to pay me. So I was expecting to get paid as soon as I gave the speech. Didn't happen. Was waiting on the money. And so we basically went to live with my in-laws. Now, I do air quotes because they didn't know. They didn't know that's why we were there. And it was unfortunate, but it was fortunate because they were sick. And my mother-in-law had to get surgery and my father-in-law had to get surgery. So we had to stay there. But they still, I don't even think to this day they knew how much we needed to be there because we didn't have money to pay the important stuff.
Oh, yeah. I mean, as we're being honest with people, and we want them to see is like, hey, you know what, we will talk about, like, they follow us on social media. You get to see the shiny side. But, even for me, when we were getting started, we had my in-laws and they were giving us, grocery cards, because we had to go explain. That's tough to say, hey, I got this business, I got the potential. And for everybody watching this or listening, like, it's crazy when you've got all these jobs and it's like, it's almost like you quote can see the money, the light at the end of the tunnel. But as you said, there's this 30 to 60 day period that you got to go to get there. And like, for everybody watching this, especially for me, because I started the agency, was you go do the speech, and depending on how the group that cuts the checks of the money, that money for me went to the agency. Then the agency had to take their thing out. Then they had to recut it and send it. So there's points where I was waiting 2 to 4 weeks on a good day. But like, even one of my buddies, his first speaking job, it took him 2 months to get the first check. And the first check was what he had made usually about 3 weeks worth of work at his normal job. So he's like, man, I'm going to be in good shape. And he ended up waiting 3 months. So we all go through those pieces, of which, as you said, and you can, talk a little bit more about her, but the big one for any speaker out there is to have that really good support group. And I know with you've got your wife, you've got your kids. I mean, explain that dynamic as far as one is having, somebody who completely believes in you. But the other part is, I see you're gone for 12 days and you got to come back and put the dad hat on. I mean, so talk about that point. It's like, it's not just all about the speaking and being the superstar. You also got to balance the life out too.
Absolutely. And I've had multiple speakers, mentors, people I consider giants in this industry that told me when I first started, hey, make sure you take care of that family, because I lost my family. I got a divorce and this happened, and I don't want that to happen to you. And the balance of, and there's got to be something, and Frank, maybe our wives can start it, like the speakers' wives or speakers' spouses or something, because what we do is unbelievable. Like, it's unbelievable. So if you're just starting and you have a loved one or you have a spouse, they're not going to understand the business. They're not. They're not going to get it. It's not anything bad about them. They just don't get it. I got paid $5,000 to talk, they don't get it. It's like a made up world that we live in. So making sure that you show them your wins, you show them the emails, you show them the grind, that's important so that they can understand. My wife has always believed in me, but she never knew about the speaking industry. So she thought when I first started, oh, this is just another thing that he's going to try on the way to his real thing. So you've got to make sure that you articulate to your significant other that, look, this is an industry. That guy, Frank Kitchen, he's making money doing this. He's supporting his family. That guy, Odell Bizzell, and I pointed us because we're not the Les Browns, the Eric Thomases, the Inky Johnsons, the John Maxwells. We're not at that level. So you can't look at those people and say, oh, that like them, but look at somebody else, look at other people, convey that. And also with your family, I've got my oldest daughter, she just turned 10 yesterday as of this recording. My middle girl, she's going to be 7 next month, and baby boy is 3. So they know what daddy does. And one thing that I do is I show them some YouTube videos. I show them like, this is what daddy's doing. I was look at daddy taking this picture with a celebrity. You see that? Like daddy's out here doing things. And when you convey it to your kids, they're like, wow, this is really cool. Mommy, daddy is kind of famous. Like mommy, daddy is kind of doing something. And so when you're gone, you have to make sure that you convey that. The FaceTime is important, all of that stuff, communicating, just keeping the communication lines open. And I'll say this for, the people that are with other people, that road life is tough. Road life is tough. Even though you might get a little reprieve from the screaming, depending on how old or young your kids are, it's tough because you're not physically there. And so you have to make sure that you convey that. But also I want to add this, you've got to make sure you start planting seeds for what your next level is. Like, what is it going to be that you're able to use your words to create a powerful impact to whereas you're not actually physically there.
Yeah. Now for me, I know this has always been my deal with my wife, and I see if you can have it for everybody watching, but especially if I go out for long periods of time, you go in, and as a speaker, our job is to fix things. So, you're in tune to spotting it, but then you come back, of which, your wife, your spouse has been, significant other's been taking care of everything. And now you try to jump back in. I knew for me, I had to learn how to turn that switch, because for a while I know I was driving my wife nuts, because I would come in and I would see the issue there. I'm like, hey, well, why don't you go do this? And it's almost like she had to tell me, hey, hold up. You've been doing that on the road, but don't be doing that here. So how do you, have you had that situation, and how do you flip that hat?
All the time. And kind of similar to what you're saying, I'll come home and the kids will be like on 10. And I'm like, y'all need to calm down. Y'all need to do this. Y'all need to do that. And my wife will be like, well, they're acting like that because you weren't here. And it's like, well, I was working. So I would say don't get defensive. And one thing that my wife and I do all the time is like, we're on the same team. We're on the same team. We both want the same things. So we have to dialogue that. So when it happens, when it comes through, knowing that, you have to make sure that you prepare for that. So when you're talking on the phone, when you're communicating, hey, are you all making sure that you're doing good for mommy or daddy? Are you all making sure? So when we come back, we can do this. That's something else that I do. Hey, before I go, we always do something fun. We always do, something. And when I come back, we always do something. I always make sure that I take the children away so that my wife can have some time. It's just a matter of continually compromising. I'm just one of those people, Frank, I go over the top for my wife so that we're being honest, right?
Yeah.
Just so she ain't got nothing else to say. Like when I come home, I've been home for 11 days. I've done the dishes. I've made sure that everything is good. I even got the kids on their schedule for what they're supposed to be doing to help around the house. I do all that stuff just so I can say, hey, I'm doing my part. I know that I'm not here physically. I understand. Here's what I can do to help. When I come back, this is what we'll do. So I say over communicate it, just so that they know that you do really care and that you are, there to continually support.
And that you recognize what's going on, and you're just dropping all these great nuggets, because I said a lot of people will teach us about how to speak, but it's all this behind the scenes, say logistics, that actually makes you successful, out there on stage. And many times we don't take the time, as you said, to communicate it or to express it. Now, the one thing for me, I know when I got into this, as we're sharing, was I thought speaking was just about speaking. And it took a while before somebody showed it to me. And, we know him, a good guy for me was Peter Billigus. But I thought my job was to jump on stage, make people happy and smile, and then leave. And I recognized that didn't get me business, and that wasn't working. So I know for you, you got coaching, you write multiple books. Can you explain, to people here, there's, the work that goes on place before you step on stage and the work that takes place after, because the way to either bring in income, but also more importantly, to bring in more work.
Yeah. So the big thing about that, and shout out to Peter Billigus, that's my guy. That's like one of the first speakers that told me there is no such thing as competition in this industry. There's too many opportunities. He told me that way back in 2008. He took me to the penthouse of the hotel that we were in and all that stuff. It was pretty cool. But yeah, so when you're preparing, and I'll reiterate this, we're brought in because of who we are to the audience, like who the audience would perceive us to be. And getting on stage and making them smile and all that stuff is a small part of it. But before that, you've got to be somebody. You've got to be somebody, and through that, you have to explain that through the written or the spoken word. You have to. So via video, a book or something like that, you've got to make sure that you do that. And then afterwards, and this is something that, Frank, I didn't do early in my career at all. Didn't even think about it. But now we have a whole lot more systems to help, is to reconnect with the audience. Yeah. You want the audience, and I mean this as appropriately as I can say it, you want the audience to want to take you home with them. Yeah. Like that's what you want. And so creating products, that book or those books, that video series, something that you can say, hey, how many of y'all like this? You enjoyed this? Great. If you would text this number or scan this QR code or do something that we can reconnect so that we can continue this experience, or you can share with somebody else. Just little things like that. I cringed when I did the numbers and thought about how many thousands of people are not on my email list because I just didn't do it. And another thing, and I'll add this before the next point, is that gives you another opportunity to reach out. I just wrote a book called Why I Fired My White Best Friend. And this kid from Wisconsin, I spoke at his school earlier in the school year. He shot me a message and said, dude, I want that book. And I said, for real? He's like, yeah, I can't afford it right now. And I said, man, don't even worry about it. I said, I'll send you a free copy, but you got to do me one favor. He said, what's that? I said, the lady that the lady that brought me in, if you believe that I was a really good speaker, I need for you to email her and tell her that. Yeah. And that was it. And he was like, oh yeah, he did it like within 10 minutes, like that right away. And I sent him the book. And all that is, it's like, look, that's an opportunity to reconnect. Maybe I can get booked to go back there. But even still, I think he's 19. He's going to remember that when he's 29. Oh, yeah. You know what I mean? He's going to remember that. And so that's what you want to do. You want to create memories for the audience so that it'll make an impact, but you also want to create memories so that it impacts your income and your bottom line. So you can only do that through creating products through creating experiences that they can enjoy after.
Yeah, because I know with you, like when I first started following you, like I saw a picture where, the first picture I saw was, and I know you posted it, I think up today as of this recording, was I see this guy's like Odell, and like he's asking some questions, but I see you on stage with like 4,000 people in Texas. I'm like, oh my God, like who's this guy? I got to connect with him. And I started looking for leads, and when I was looking at leads, a lot of the places I kept seeing your face pop up. I'm like, okay, I was like, who is this? I'm like, I was like, God must want me to meet him. So when I found you on social media and started following you, the one thing that, first drew me was the fact of you took the experience off stage, in the sense of I saw you going like, I think you're at an ice cream shop. You're like, hey, I'm hanging out at the ice cream shop. Anybody wants to come hang out with me? And then the next video was all the kids at this college are at the ice cream shop with you sampling ice cream. Like, what? I see another one where you're like, hey, you know what? Who wants to come down and, shoot some hoops? It's like, I'm going to be living up my Jordan dreams. And you're down there next thing I see video of you, you're playing basketball. And I like the fact that you are accessible, because I know that's something that you talk about on stage, but you also live it off stage. Because I told people, you see a lot of these speakers, and I used to work at a college, and I would bring in speakers like yourself. And I would watch my students or the people either be, elevated based off of the experience that the speaker provided post being on stage, or the dreams that got crushed because they put this person on such a pedestal. And then once they're off stage, you're a completely different person, where the student's like, oh man, they didn't want to hang out with me. They didn't talk to me. They didn't do this experience about the free book. And what people didn't understand was we never booked that person again. But the person like yourself was like, oh, you know what? He's been here for 7 or 8 years. Another speaker would contact, like, hey, can I come in? And it's like, nope, guess what? We're loyal to Odell because of the way he treats people off stage.
Yeah. And it's really about being authentic. And one thing about me that I tell people is I'm not really an extroverted person. It's not I would rather be at home. I would rather be, in my hotel room when I'm on the road to myself. I'm a writer at heart. Mm-hmm. So every single day I try to find time to write, because that's just what I love to do. And that's a isolated experience. And I understand that you might not want to be around a lot of people, but the big thing is when we get on stage, there's a saying that you never want to meet your heroes, right? Yeah. 'Cause they're going to disappoint you. I always wanted to be that person that when they meet me, it's like it goes up a level. Like when they meet me, when they get to know me, it goes up a level, and they're like, wow. And if you're listening to this or you're watching this, as a professional speaker, I don't care how much money is in your bank account. If somebody pays you to come speak, mm-hmm. that person, first of all, thinks, wow, you're a big deal. If you're getting paid $1,500, $15,000, it doesn't matter, because they do the math for you. They look through your social media. They look you up online, and they see, wow, Frank spoke to 20 organizations. We're paying him $4,000. So he at least is making $80,000. At least I don't get paid this for a month and a half of work. So you're automatically elevated to the person that brings you in. Then the audience, they might not know the details of that, but they hear your bio. He's been to 40-something states, or he's been doing this and she's been doing that. They hear that and they're like, oh my gosh, this person, you're like elevated to at least C-list celebrity. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Yeah. At least. So that's what they think. And you have to treat that with as much respect and reverence as possible, because if you're your authentic self, even if you don't want to be around them or you want to be silly like me, hey, let's go hoop, let's go do this, let's freestyle rap, like, all that. If you don't want to do that, that's cool, but at least do something for them to let them know that you're a real human being, that you love this. It's just cool, it's just authentic, but also it'll help with your money, because what Frank just said, I've been rebooked so many times because people have called me and said, Odell, they're still talking about you. They're still talking about you. Yeah. And it's like, really? Wow. That was a long time ago. Cool. Let's get it done again. So it's really important money-wise, not just, as a good human being stuff.
Oh, exactly. And like you said, just making that impact. But speaking of making that impact, as you said, I know you are an amazing speaker and you love it, but people probably be surprised, as you said, where you got this big love for writing. As you said, Frank, I want to be on New York Times bestsellers list. I want to write all these books. So for, a lot of the people out there, because you've written multiple books, as a speaker, do you consider it a must to have a book? And what's, if you want to say, I don't call it the quickest way, but, what should they write about? What's the quick thing they should, post out there?
Right. So is it a must to write a book to start your speaking career? Absolutely not. Is it a must to maintain a healthy relationship? Is it a must for you to go out on dates? It's not a must, but yeah, like you want to do it. Like you want to do it. So to get started, I don't want that to be something that impedes you. Oh, I don't have a book. I don't have any idea what I'm going to write about. I can't get started. No, you can get started. But eventually, you will write a book. Yep. Eventually you will. Or you'll limit your income. And that's just the bare bones about it. What you should write about, you should write about something that you're passionate about, but you should also find that intersection between what you're passionate about and what the audience is looking for. You got to find that intersection. And the books that I wrote them, Frank, before I even knew that there was a market for them, because I just write. And I'm not telling, the audience to do that. Don't do that, actually. Don't do that. But I just write. Like, I just love to write. So I wrote my financial literacy book. That came from, I went through a rough financial patch in my early 20s. And it was like, wow, if I would have known one or two things when I was a teenager, I would have never gone through this. This is what the financial book was about. But there's a whole market for that. There are grant monies in the government laid aside to teach students about financial literacy. So it was a smart move in hindsight, but I didn't know that at the time. Student success, is just something people want. Getting into college, those are books, things that I wrote about because that was my experience. That's what I went through. The unique thing about the way that I write is that I always write in story form. So it's always something that happened or that is happening in Odell's life or adjacent to Odell's life. So I can tell it. Like, it's not like I'm dictating this is what you should do, blah, 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 blah. It's like, hey, this is what happened to me. What do you think about this? It's very observational. So it's a little different spin, but you've got to write. And a great speaking coach that I know, Frank, I know you heard of him, Grant Baldwin. Yeah. I had a one-on-one talk with Grant Baldwin, and he asked me, he said, are you a writer that likes to speak, or are you a speaker that likes to write? And I said, I'm actually a writer. Like I would identify myself as a writer, and he self-identified as, well, I'm a speaker, but I'm forced to write. And Grant, I'm kind of sharing a little bit, but he got a huge book advance to write a book. Grant had never written a book, but he got a huge advance to write a book. So it's like eventually you will, because books are still very, very valuable resources. And they set you apart. And again, when I talked about your audience wants to be able to take you home, you can give them a book and they'll always have that with them. Yep.
So I'm going to be respectful for your time because you've got a lot. So we may have to come back. I might have to come onto your podcast again in the future and bring you back for this one. But anybody I've invited on, we were talking about there's the art and the business of speaking. And there's a lot of things that we know now where we say if we could go back in time, if time travel existed, you might write a book on this one. So it's like, go back and, I don't know what the title would be, but visiting my past speaker self. If you had to go back and, from day one when you first got into this, what's one thing about the art of speaking, which, as far as how to engage and interact with the audience, and one thing on the business side as far as to keep getting on those stages, what would you share with your past self in story form where all of us can learn from it right now?
All right, this is going to be worth the price of admission. So like this, what I'm about to share is literally what people pay me for. So Pay close attention. The
All right.
art of speaking. Most people think that they're really, really good speakers. They do. Like they get to a point where, oh, I'm good. I don't need the art. I don't need it. Everybody needs it. You always need it. And so when I first started, talent wise, I was really good. I mean, I told you what my public speaking professor did because I over rehearse. I go over stuff all the time. And I think it just comes from, I was an athlete. So you always practice. You practice the plays, you practice the drills. And also as a performing artist, whenever I go into the studio to do a song over and over and over and over and over again. So if I'm doing a speech, I'm going to know exactly what I say, know exactly when to say it. But the studying that part, what I wish I would have known, I wish I would have known more about the improvisational, I don't even know if that's the right word, but the improv part of speaking. John Acuff, another great speaker, gave me this advice. He said, you always want 90% to know exactly what you're going to say. 90%, you know your transitions, you know the story, you know the point you're taking them on, you know all of that stuff, 90%. But you want that 10% to just happen. Like you just want that 10% to happen. When I first started, I knew everything. I was a little rigid with the way I first started with the art. The business of speaking. This is the one I was talking about is going to be worth the price of admission. Any market that you want to get into, any market, I don't care what it is, no matter what the audience is, the quick way to the front of the decision maker's mind is to identify who the decision makers are and then interview them.
Yeah.
That's it. If I would have known that when I first started as a 22-year-old kid, don't be spamming people and reaching out just to, hey, I'm a speaker, come book me. It's like, oh my gosh, Frank, you work in orientation and leadership. Your students said that you were amazing. Could I interview you about the details of your job and the challenges of your job to help other people? It's huge. And I'll give you this one too. And this is something that I'm doing. So that's why I said this is worth the price of admission. Whatever conference you want to speak at, if it happened already, perfect. Find that committee. But Odell, the committee changes every year. Interview the committee. What were y'all looking for? What were the challenges in planning this? So you become a resource. Then when you become a resource, you can circle back and say, hey, Frank, you remember we had the conversation where I've actually started doing some stuff. It's an easier sell. If I would have known that as a 22-year-old kid, man, listen, I might be up on those levels.
There you go. Yeah, and as you said, that's the big deal. Like, I was working with some entrepreneurs last night, and I told them, like, hey, it's like all you have to do is go ask the questions. Becky, you said about the interview, we all use different words, different semantics, but we say the same thing. It's just packaged different ways. And I goes like, yeah, it's like all you got to do is call up, even on the phones for people who are watching and listening to this right now, is you call me, like, hey, can you explain the process to me? What, as you said, what do you look for? When do you look for it? And most of the people will answer that question because you aren't actually trying to sell yourself. And then they'll ask you, like, oh, so what do you do? And you're like, oh, I happen to be a speaker. Oh, are you available? I mean, it sounds like, quote, is it that easy? But when you can find, as you said, the decision makers, past or present, you can go through. So even for me, I was coaching my wife the other day about how to go find leads. I'm like, yeah. I was like, don't look up this year's leads. I was like, go find the conference from last year. She's like, what? I was like, because you can find that contact person, even if they've, as you said, changed over. Hey, you know what? You were the chairperson last year. Would you happen to know the person who's in charge this year? Who did you select last year? And almost all these people, I don't know what your success rate is, but they usually will at least have the conversation with you to answer the questions. And all you're doing is you're actually building up your file, as you said, or your resource. I love how you said it. It's like, I want to be a resource for you. And it's amazing. So obviously you're throwing some coaching out right there. And there's going to be some people who watch this where it really resonates. And I want to give you your opportunity to shine, because there could be some people on the East Coast, North Carolina, or who knows, because I know you do video coaching. But what do you look for in a coach? So people here who are looking for a speaking coach, it could be you, it could be me, it could be someone out there. What should they look for when they look to hire or invest in a speaking coach?
Right. So the first thing I would say is a very simple, very fundamental thing is you want to look at somebody who, when you look them up, when you research them, you'll be like, wow, it would be cool if I could speak on that stage. It would be cool if I could do those amount of engagements. You want to make sure that you ask them the questions. Hey, well, how often are you getting booked? How, what are you doing in the business so that you let them know that I'm serious, but also you don't want to take advice from somebody who is not more advanced than you. And even if they're a step ahead, like I tell people all the time, my coaching is not for you if you're already making $150,000 a year and you already booked as much as you want, then my coach is not for you, because that's the level that I'm at. So if you're before that level, or maybe if you're at that level and you want a little nuance or a little trick or something, I hired the last speaking coach I hired. We're basically at the same level. He's just in a different market.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, he's killing it in this market that I want to get into. So why wouldn't I pay him? Because even if the money's the same, it doesn't matter. But he's in the market that I want to be in. So what is he doing? What language is he using? That's important. So you want to make sure that you find somebody that you wouldn't mind trading the careers with them at the moment. You want to align with somebody who's got similar morals and values. I'm not one of those people that I'm not gonna Gary V you. You know what I mean? Like I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna drop a bunch of F-bombs. I'm not gonna, be in your face like that. I'm the type of person where it's like, look, you do this if you want to do it. Here's what you do. If you don't do it, that's your fault, not mine. So so you want to align with somebody with personalities that align with yours. And then the last thing I'll say, Frank, is you want to align with somebody that if things don't work out exactly like you think they're going to work out, you feel confident that that person will still support you. So if you pay, let's say if you go to pay somebody and they're like, well, after this program, you'll get XYZ, blah, 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 blah. And it doesn't work out because of life or because of whatever, you got to go with somebody that you feel like, okay, it didn't work out exactly right. Could you help me here and there without saying, hey, well, you just got to go through the program again?
Yeah.
Because I think there's a level of integrity there to where it's this very subjective line of work that we're in, but you got to be able to align with somebody that it's like, okay, look, you paid me, you invested in me, this didn't work. I can't give you my full attention, but here, let me give you some supporting resources, supporting things.
Yeah, and that's just showing that you care. And that's the piece I love about you, Odell, is as you're saying about this with your coaching, your speaking, your life, you are a practitioner of what you preach to everybody. And that's the big piece. If they're looking for a coach or someone to align themselves with, is it, make sure they are a practitioner, not a theorist.
That's good.
Because the big piece is everything that you've shared with us today, lots of great information are, if you want to say some things have worked, some things, have not worked, but you're practicing these on a daily basis. So as you're learning along with it too. So to help our people learn better, here's what we're going to do. I know people want to stay in contact with you. So if you could let them know the best way to stay in contact with you. But then the other one is, because you are, quote, a motivational speaker, I would love for you to leave them with like one phrase, sentence, just comment, just to keep people, motivated, inspired, and elevated after listening to you to share your knowledge with us today.
Got it. So definitely you can go to impactspeakingtips.com. That's where I give out free tips, free advice on videos, on my blog, impactspeakingtips.com. You can also follow me across social media at Odell Bizzell. Is just my first and last name, Odell. B as in boy, Izzell. The only Odell Bizzell in the world. I researched it, Frank. I'm the only one. As far as a motivational tip, this is something I heard a long time ago from a pastor of mine, but it stuck and it still does. Your dreams don't have an expiration date, but you do. So whatever the creator put inside of you to let out, he was smart enough to know, or they were smart enough to know that you might not do it. So if you don't let your dreams and your aspirations manifest, then your family, and your future generations won't get the benefit, but somebody will, because that goodness and that value will still come out. So do not let your do not let your life expire before your dreams do.
And so how is that for fresh takes, everybody? Leaving out with like the mic drop right there, saying don't let those dreams expire. So ladies and gentlemen, this has been Odell Bizzell hanging out with us here on Fresh Takes. Once again, go look him up. He's got his podcast, he's got his books, he's got his speaking. He is all over social media. And as he says, he is the one and only special, unique, amazing person, Odell Bizzell, that you'll find out there. So go look him up. And I can tell you right now, he has shared a lot of information, knowledge with me, and I know he will do the same for you. So Odell, thank you for today, and I'll see you on your podcast soon.
Thanks for having me. Thanks.
All right, I'll talk to you later. And